Welcome to a hopefully quick tutorial about this new tool we put together that helps you figure out the best setup for a particular race, or just figure out how long it might take and where you might be when, or what weather conditions you might encounter. Long story short, this is a physics-based simulation that lets you upload any route or ride file that you would like. Then you can edit surface types and things like that along the way. Put in some attributes about your bike, yourself, and your skill level, and then click a button to compute how long it will take to complete that course, your average speed, how much headwind is on the course, what the weather is going to be like on the course, and really just so many other pieces of useful information. So let's take a look here. When you first come to the site, you have this main screen which gives you the choice to either upload a GPX file or choose a preloaded file that just comes from our server. If you just want to kind of like check it out but don't really have a GPX file on hand. And I might support some formats that aren't GPX files in the future. One note, these GPX files are more of like the route ones you would download from Ride with GPS or download from the Sherpa-Map.com site, our other site for creating routes, and less so like an actual ride file. So just keep that in mind if you are uploading a GPX file. It's really for like a route GPX file, not so much for a activity GPX file. Although I might support them and look into them in the future, and to be frank, haven't even tried them, but might not work that well. In any case, though, let's jump right into it. Why don't we bring up the Big Sugar course? So that just plops a course directly onto the map, and you might be wondering, what are all of these different colors for? Well, the colors denote different surface types. Black is paved, gray is gravel, so on and so forth. Now, what if your route is wrong? What if you upload a route and you see a whole bunch of unknown, or perhaps a portion that's marked as unpaved is actually some mountain bike course or something like that? Well, this is a physics-based simulation, so it works better if you put in more correct information. And that's where this painting mechanism comes in. You can select any surface type you'd like, or even some mountain bike courses, and you can just paint them in. So if I've done this course before, and maybe I want to optimize my setup this time, and I know that this portion is dirt, I can just put that in. I can even change this to like mountain biking. Just put in some mountain bike blue. And so we can edit the features of the course on the fly, and yeah, you can use that in the physics simulation. Now, beyond this, you can choose road bike, TT bike, gravel bike. You can choose different tires, and these affect a lot of different things under the hood. The different bike type you choose is going to affect your handling a bit. It's going to affect your aerodynamics a bit. The different tires you choose or wheels you choose are going to heavily affect your handling and somewhat affect your CDA, which is your how aero you are. So you will be slightly less aero with a bigger, thicker mountain bike tire in comparison with a road or gravel tire, as an example. You also put in your height, well, your weight, your bike weight, and your height. The height will slightly affect your CDA, not as pronounced as Zwift, as an example. They get a little crazy in how much it affects it. I looked into it, but if you're a taller person, you'll be slightly less aero. However, you can put in whatever aero value you want, and so in reality, if you feel like the calculations for the aerodynamics are off and you've done wind tunnel testing and things like that, then by all means put in your own coefficient of drag area if you know what it is. But this kind of gets put together on the fly as you enter in these items. Beyond this, you can put in your skill level. This is going to affect how quickly you go through technical portions, dependent on your bike type and things like that. It will make you a better mountain biker on a road bike through a mountain bike course if you choose expert level skill, as an example. Um, Going down, we have power. So this is the average power you expect to do for the entire ride. However, I do intelligently redistribute it depending on hills, headwinds, and out of turns, other features like that. And so it will do more power. It will redistribute it to the same average, but it will do more power uphill and less power downhill, more power into headwinds, less power with tailwinds, and a couple more factors, etc., etc. Going on, we have compute and add weather. If you just wanted to go ahead, compute and see, not even thinking about the weather and just assume consistent weather throughout the entire course, you can click that and you can get a nice value of how long it's going to take you to do what at what speed with what setup. You even get a nice little icon that shows you what you are, which I think is pretty cool. If you want to add weather to the course, you can click this fancy button and it comes out with a whole load of different options. And so you can change the start date, You can change start time, and you can simply click compute with weather. And there we go, computed with weather. Now this actually computes twice. It computes the first time with a whole physics simulation through the entire course to figure out where you will be when, assuming there is no weather, or no weather being taken into account. And then with that information, it computes a whole second time, taking into account headwinds, tailwinds, and all of that fun stuff. And we get a more refined speed and moving time, which I think is pretty useful. Beyond this, you have route info, which gives a whole host of information, especially if you hit the weather button. I mean, you have everything from your longest headwind, which looks like the longest headwind on this course is going to be about 4.3 kilometers. Your tailwind percentage, so 3.88%. And it says tailwind, it will say headwind percentage if it's a negative value. Means that you have a slight overall tailwind if you average it out. You have your mean wind, max wind, min wind. You have your percentages of paved, unpaved, or gravel. I now see I need to add the mountain biking ones, so I will get to that. Your humidity, average temperature. You might be wondering, why is everything in metric? I myself am actually from Wisconsin, USA. I think about everything in imperial, but all of the math is in metric, and it just made it way easier to do tons and tons of math in metric. However, I will be adding a button to switch this to imperial because that will be way easier. And so, moving down, we have tons of different map types. You can do road map, satellite map, and these are Google's maps. So you can zoom in and check things. Have a terrain map. We have the OpenStreetMap terrain map, all that fun stuff. Now, I'm working on adding more of these and adding annotations to things. I don't think there's any at the moment. But I do have an advanced setting page, which gives you all sorts of advanced information to go ahead and futz with multipliers, factors, and other things that help feed the model. I'm going to be honest, at the moment, these are really more for me to help tune it. I am working on adding all of them. This is maybe a quarter of the actual factors that make up the model. A lot of them are just programmed in the back end, and you would have to like go into the code to mess with them. But I'm going to add practically all of them here. I'm going to add some very advanced descriptions for all of them, and then I'm going to add a submit button with an explanation that lets you maybe play around with the mountain bike settings, make it more realistic to how much you think you would break through like a particular course with a particular setup, things like that, or how your CDA is affected and such. And then you can submit that to me, and I can make those adjustments or take a look at the recommendation. One final note, I should probably talk about CDA. So again, this is where you enter in how big you are for the actual error that you are facing. I do try to calculate this out pretty well given the values that you have entered, your height, and those other data points, but you can mess with that and change it to what you want if you know what your CDA is. Now, I have this option below it called Dynamic CDA. So this is a really cool one that I spent some time programming, and what it does is it takes this value and makes it your best case scenario. And then it will wiffle waffle a bit. So if you're going uphill, for instance, then you're probably sitting up some more on your bike, or maybe standing up. And so your CDA will go down on the uphill, but it will get better on like the downhill into the flats. It will also change based on the wind. So when it does the second process for weather data, you will have better CDA into a headwind and worse CDA with a tailwind. So that's pretty cool, especially when you combine those factors. It also takes into account turns, your worse CDA coming into a turn, better CDA coming out of a turn, things like that. You can turn it off. So if you're, say, doing the Ironman Kona course and you know you're going to slam the whole thing at like a very particular CDA that you worked out in a wind tunnel, feel free to just put that in and it will just uncheck that box and it will use that value for the entire course. So you don't need to have it dynamic. But I'm trying to make this realistic to make some good observations for different courses as a good simulator. Farther, it will also take into account the sketchiness of your setup. So if you take like a road bike with beginner skill onto some unpaved or gravel as an example, then your CDA will get worse and that will combine with the other factors. It has a whole bunch of weighted models and things like that in the back end, doing a lot of that to help affect how you will perform in the course. On that note, I also take into account braking. Dependent upon your choices, you're going to brake into turns and then accelerate out of turns. You will also brake along sections of gravel more if you have a sketchier setup in comparison to sections of paved road. So there's a lot of stuff being taken into account. I'm trying to make this as comprehensive as possible. This is a good starting point, and I'm working on adding more features. It's going to have a really nice graph and a lot of other fun stuff soon, but I wanted to release this starting point because I think it's pretty usable right now. I also plan on utilizing this vast amount of weather information, course information, and power data and things like that in order to give you a great nutritional breakdown too, like how much water should you take for the course, um, and how much carbohydrates, how many electrolytes, at what points should you have gels and things like that. So I'm going to try to break that out too and just provide a nice wealth of information. But that pretty much sums up what I've been working on here. And again, there's going to be a lot more added to it soon. Thanks if you made it this far.